many companies sold for $1 billion back then. We were valued at 1.2 to sell for 3.4. Even, low executives made out really well. And so, I then decided as the transition was happening that I'd stay on, but I'd start branding myself as an internet guru, that I was destined for the Silicon Valley, that this internet boom I was going to take advantage of in the 90s, and learned how to really use my sales skills. So I became a director of sales, did my first road show with the company to assist them in raising $169 million in Sand Hill Road, experienced Texas Pacific, Amarillo, Sequoia, all the big houses. Like you said, I had it. So I made relationships, even with the companies that didn't stroke me checks. And back then, to give you a different perspective, companies may not have been selling in 95 for $3.4 billion, but never again will we see, HP Venture, Accenture, Sequoia, literally at a first meeting, stroke a check for $10 million. Yeah. I know people don't believe it, but it was happening. Yeah. And so we raised $169 million in the wireless proxy service space, transcoding, the content into WAP phones and Palm 7s, et cetera. The interesting thing what people have to realize, I was in a job that I knew was going to expire. Meaning, I was in a profession where I literally at a board meeting said, I'm not getting this. Like, why are people giving us $169 million and we're trying to buy market share for something that's not going to exist? And like, what are you talking about? I go, well, eventually you'll get the internet on your phone. You don't have to transcode the internet into this format. Eventually, you'll be able just to get on the phone, so all of us are going to be out of business. Oh, we're about that then. Meanwhile, we did. I ended up manifesting the next job, which was the world's first smartphone. I became CEO because I was talking about all the time, even though I was in transcoding, the idea of there's content, there's access, and there's mediums to provide it on, and that we can make money and monetize each of these places. That was middleware, right? For me, that was actually the convergence devices. And that's what they called smartphones back then.
Let me ask you something about your career, because it seems like you were always on the beginning of the next big thing, right? Which is fascinating and very rewarding, but it's also, it can be cumbersome on your brain and your mentality, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to step into this next new thing. Is it going to make it?
Yeah.
Right? How do you push through that? Because you're, like you're saying, there's big numbers. Is there a lifespan to this job? Is this going to go away?
So what's cool about that, and you really picked up on something no one's ever picked up on before, is what was truly evolving in my career was that I identified my frequency or my skill set. I was a sales guy. So what better place to be a sales guy, right? I wasn't responsible for anything. Even when I was CEO of Samsung's first convergence device, it was really a sales position, right? I was selling an idea, sharing a vision. Yeah. So my whole career out of law school was about selling something. So to be on the front end, I could use the emotional attachment, the excitement about something new, the first. And so until I actually left the technology industry and went to be the CEO of the world's most notable sports agency, that's where I really started to be an operator, to be a motivator, shift my paradigm, my quantum shift in life by working with a philanthropist like Lee Steinberg, who truly doesn't care about money, and have the notoriety of an established brand, credibility, a business that wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. And so that shift was incredible. In the interim, though, I was completely out of my mind as an entrepreneur, investing into all kinds of different things.
I love that you talk and you have the pride of saying that you were a salesperson. Because through my career, there's been the ups and downs of that label. Like, I'm a salesperson, like, don't come in my door, right? But it's true, we're all selling something to a degree. And if we can get behind that and be proud of what we do and how we do it, and the products that we represent or the message that we're representing, I think it's important to identify that early as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where the paradigm of value shift is. When I was overselling, back-end selling, manipulating, and lying people, which most salespeople do, I didn't have that pride. But sales to me, because I am a salesperson, I'm one of the best at it because I have a 120 rule, right? I'm going to provide you $100 worth of value and ask for $20 back. Yeah. And there's a quantitative adjustment that occurs that I can simply say to anyone I sell to, can you see any reason you won't want to move forward? And I know the answer before I ask it. The only answer I ever get that's a little bit resistance is, where's the catch? Yeah. This is too good to be true.
And that's a good point, Dave, because in the year that I've worked...
And that happened to me today. At the very end,
right.
The guy was asking, why are you doing this? Where's the catch?
Where's the Amway? Or whatever it was.
Right, he said, what are you going to sell me? Yeah. And that's when I said, you know what? I'm living my life the right way again.
Yeah.
because I provided so much value, this guy can't believe I'm not going to ask for something.
Yeah.
Because he's so conditioned that when people hype you up like that all they're going to do is try to get something from you.
Yeah, sure. So you touched on it briefly, being at the sports agency. I love when people ask me, well, who's David Meltzer? I'm like, Jerry Maguire. You gotta go down that road.
I wish, yeah. It's so funny because sometimes you can use that, right? I work for Lee Steinberg.
Yeah.
They made the movie Jerry Maguire about the firm. Lee's the one who should be credited, and he's the legacy of being the greatest sports agent of all time. I was just blessed to be the CEO, handed off the reins from Jeff Morad, who's an extraordinary operator, a great mentor of mine who ended up owning the Padres. But I was smart enough, once again, to learn to leverage the credibility and the relationship capital. To use, as much as I was on the cutting edge, I love being older to the legacy of, so you were one of the first guys at Westlaw, multi-billion-dollar company. You're one of the first guys in the Silicon Valley to raise $169 million in his 20s. You were the first smartphone CEO, right? And then you were the CEO of Lee Steinberg. What are you, Forrest Gump? Right? Like, honestly, but that only comes with the question that's asked here is I just kept saying yes, 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 yes. Yeah. But the only difference that I had is, okay, how am I going to get it done? I just didn't say yes. But that can become overwhelming and cumbersome to say yes to too many things, which is what occurred to me with all my investments, that I overextended myself, that I allowed my ego to get in my way, and I had some real good lessons to learn about humility, about not knowing everything, and I ended up over-leveraging myself, making bad decisions based off of bad assumptions and losing over $100 million.
Yeah, you talk about that sometimes, about going broke.
Yeah.
And then digging your way back out of that. I mean, we've heard those stories, right? From other leaders, and you're
2008 created a lot of those stories.
Yeah. How do you pick yourself up and climb out of that hole, though? I mean, I'm a firm believer. Once you do it and you know how to do it, you can do it again. But
yeah, and that was the math that I used, right? And I also had started my quantum shift before I lost everything, so I was on a really good trajectory when I finally had to claim bankruptcy. But it was exactly what you said. Is I went down mathematically and said, I was a millionaire 9 months out of law school. I knew no one, never had a real job. I had $100,000 of law debt, right? And I had no situational knowledge and experience. Now, I may have lost everything, but I have been kind to my future self. I'm still the CEO of the world's most famous law firm. I have extraordinary people around me. I have no debt. I just literally, and I know so much more. Like, all in my head was, how long is it going to take for me to make my first $1 million if it took me 9 months? And it took me 2 months, by the way.
Great.
But moreover, and more importantly, it was, how am I going to keep it and what am I going to do with it?
Yeah, keeping it, what you're going to do with it.
Yeah.
So you transitioned out of Lee Steinberg's agency and created your own.
Yeah, with Warren Moon.
Wonderful partner.
Yeah, Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon. At the time when I was looking to transition, because Warren told me it was time to transition, he had been with Lee since he was 21 years old. He said, look, Lee has his own personal issues, which now he's come public with, alcoholism, a terrible disease, but he said it's time for us to move on. And I was offered to be partners with Steve Young, Troy Aikman, Warren Moon. Warren Moon, the reason I chose him was he had always said one thing to me that I knew he'd be a good business partner. He always said, if I don't know something, Dave, excuse me, but I'm going to ask you. My mom always told me to ask. And so from the day I met him, if I used a word that he didn't understand, a concept that he couldn't grasp, and he also had this QB1 Kenobi wisdom. We were yin and yang. His strengths were my weaknesses his, vice versa. And we fit together, and we built an extraordinary business over the last 11 years, starting in more sponsorship and advertising, moving into media, always with the philanthropic requirement of we're not going to do anything that doesn't have a charitable purpose or cause tied to it.
Now, I've been working with you for over a year. I think it's been almost a year now. One thing that always baffles me in my own career, I've worked with a lot of professional athletes at the top level, Arnold Palmer, Bill Walton, Peter Jacobson.
Yeah, let's get them on the podcast, man. Exactly. Those are good talents.
When I'm with those people, though, I think, how do I harness what they've achieved? Because they're greats. And you've been around a lot of greats in your career. I mean, how do you harness that? Because sitting in the office with Warren Moon going, wow, this guy really achieved something.
Yeah, and I think that's, because I help with your podcast, that's where the playbook came from, is that Think and Grow Rich was my favorite book. Every time I read it, I felt I could make more money. And basically what Napoleon Hill did was harness the great ideas from the greatest leaders in the world. And so for whether it was Warren Moon or all the other Hall of Famers that I work with, or the Clemente family, or it went on and on and on, I started realizing that there was themes, that there was a consistent behavior, there were certain characteristics, there was certain things that values and experiences and lessons and stories that could be shared with everyone to give them a taste of, hey, look, there is a way that we can manufacture this greatness, this spirit of excellence, and how do I live? And there is something special about these people.
Yeah.
They're not perfect, right?
Of course.
But in order to be the best in the world at something, there's something special about it. Doesn't mean you're good at everything. You could be completely screwed up with your finances and your marriage and all these other things. But imagine being the greatest quarterback in the world, something that almost every little boy wanted to be when they were 8. Or imagine being the greatest woman car driver like Danica Patrick, or the greatest linebacker like Ray Lewis, or the greatest CEO in the world like Howard Schultz, or whatever, or McDonald, Gray Kroc. What is it about these guys? What's their playbook to success? And I started, and that's where these philosophies, lessons, and stories came from that I drive and made me, I think, an extraordinary executive coach, that I'm able to very quickly get to an issue and say, here, this is what the greats do. And you can do it. And it's not hard. I think even earlier today, I was teaching everyone, about lessons in life, and that we learn, and there's books about this, but by the time you're 5, you've heard all the things you need to know to be successful. It's just remembering it.
We're in San Diego. We're talking about these guys. Real quick, funny story with Bill Walton. When I first met him to work together, he kept going, Jim, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Like, you're on the winning team. And I look across his kitchen floor, and the sliding glass door's open, and the cat's coming through the door with a dead mouse in his I'm going, wow, even the cat is winning in this house.
Right,
I'm going to work with this guy. So,
yeah.
It's just wonderful to be around those types of people. You have a give back philosophy in your business. Can you tell us about that briefly? Because I think it's so important. We do the same in mine with the orphanages.
It's in my life. Right. So it's more than just my business. It's like, I'm here to be of service, to be productive, to provide value, and to be accessible to others and access what I want. And I firmly put faith, and faith is what I think, say, do, believe, my unconscious competency of my personality traits, characteristics, obsessions, and addictions, and my energy. I put all my faith into providing value and being of service. That means that even in, you call it a business and work, I call it activity I get paid for, it's going to be to help other people. And allowing that to happen is a requirement of my life. And I do. I have people don't know this. There's a distribution model that I believe about about giving. And I think you're foolish if you don't align your giving with your core values, your personal, experiential giving, and receiving values. So my giving starts with my wife, right? Then it goes to my kids. Then it goes to my mom. Then it goes to the rest of my immediate family. Then it goes to my business. Then it goes to my community. Then it goes to the country, and then it goes to the world. And then I actually have a distribution channel that is a percentage.
Wow.
That it just goes that way, all of it. And so I always say, predetermine your success and don't allow your emotions to take you off the course. So I reverse engineer so many things that other people never think of that just save me time, energy, and emotion, so that I don't have to think about what I'm giving because it's already predetermined.
Yeah.
Right? Already predetermined that out of every dollar, 3 cents is going to Africa.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
It is what it is.
You talk a lot in some of your public formats about your faith.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important in this day and age because we've gotten so shallow across the board, but to be able to have a foundation of faith, but then be bold enough to talk about it. And I appreciate that.
Of course, I think people, they have resistance, voids, and shortages about faith because they put their own religious, or they separate one another. I don't believe in any religion that separates us, right? I put faith in what I want, right? And I believe faith has inspiration, and I believe in God, and I believe in the faith of goodness, and I believe in the faith of what I want, and I've learned to control my faith. I think faith is a currency. Just like in, where I started this meetup today was, hey, we live on Earth. Let's start with one rule. We have a body that will expire when the heart stops.
Yeah.
And if you don't take care of your body, nothing else matters. So your first priority should be your health. Because if not, you're going to diminish your family and your business and everything else behind it. And 2, money is the currency of this world, of this vibration.
Sure.
But it doesn't make you happy. To circle all the way back to where we started, it just allows you to shop. And in periods of my life where I shop for the right things, like a house and a car for my mom, or to help out my kids, or to give scholarships to college, even if I had the wrong intent, a little bit of trading and ego involved to be rewarded for that, it still was good. I was shopping for the right things. But when you shop for the wrong things, you're putting faith in the wrong things.